Up next, some of our own FIU faculty showcasing how they've been increasing engagement in their learners. You may remember them from the Department of Psychology. Please welcome the doctors, Maria Reid, Rachel Ritchie, Julie Parker, and Arlene Garcia.
Dr. Rachel Ritchie. I'm with the Department of Psychology. I am an associate teaching professor, and I'm here with some of my colleagues to tell you about the innovative things that we have been doing in our own classrooms using technology. Between the three of us, we teach thousands of students each year. Our class sizes range from about 25 students in the master's programs to about 400 freshmen that we teach in our introductory level classes. The four of us each teach across all four, possibly five modalities. During the pandemic, we all did the high flex model too. And we hope that you enjoy our ideas and can take something with you today into your own classrooms. They said there was a 3-second delay. There we are. So, engagement means interaction. Even in a class of 400 students, it's possible to have interaction where your students feel like you are connecting with them one-on-one, whether that's in a physical space like this space, or whether it's on an online platform, on Zoom or on Canvas. Interaction leads to increases in student satisfaction, which leads to academic achievement. When students believe that you, as their professor, genuinely care about their learning and their well-being, they engage with the class more and they want to do better. Different examples of engagement. Engagement doesn't always have to be just you to the student, like trying to pull teeth for the whole 75-minute class period. Instructor to student, it can be talking. I like to get there early to greet students as they come in the first day, second day. I make random chit-chat with them about maybe what the last game was on TV, or I might comment on what they're wearing, like, hey, I like your Marvel shirt. It can be emails. It doesn't even have to be personal emails. I got an email this morning thanking me for an announcement I posted because it helps them get to know me better. Posting announcements, you can post video announcements, you can include pictures in your announcements. Tomorrow's Halloween, so Wednesday my students will expect an email with mine and my daughter's matching Ghostbusters costumes. It can be videos. It doesn't even have to be videos of you speaking. It can be short demo videos of you doing something. Feedback is another great example of an instructor to student interaction. I know it's hard to do personalized feedback. My classes are like 175 people, but there's a lot of easy to use tools that you can go into your Canvas gradebook and sort and provide feedback to mass groups of people that feel kind of personalized. And also scheduling meetings with your students, giving them individual one-on-one time as needed. The other big part of engagement is student-to-student engagement. I know most of us think discussions, and discussion forums tend to be a little bit dry. There's ways that you can spice up discussion forums and make them feel more intimate. My online classes tend to be between 80 and 100 people. And going onto a discussion board and reading 80 to 100 people's posts is horrible. So to combat that, I divide them up into groups the first day. So they only ever experience 10 people. And these 10 people get to know each other throughout the course of the 16 weeks by interacting with them over and over again. Group assignments is another great way to get students talking to each other. They can also form study groups. They can engage in the peer review process. Things like Turnitin make it really easy to assign peer reviews to students on assignments. And my colleagues are later going to talk about Yellowdig, which is a tool that they're using in their online classes to enliven discussions. I'm going to talk about some of the ways that students can engage with the content. Readings and videos, PlayPosit is a fantastic tool. I love Kahoot. I know Arlene is presenting on Kahoot later on. And my colleagues are also going to be presenting on some of the simulations that they use in their classrooms. So, one of my favorite tools is Microsoft Forms. It's built in to all of our FIU tools. It's easy to use, it's free, it's supported by our technology services. It's quick, and it gives you visible results. You can use it immediately in the classroom, and you can use it for a lot of different things. I like to use mine for having students engage in test reflections. The most important part of the test is what they do after the test, when they get to examine their metacognition. They look at how well they learned from the test, and they plan for their next test. You can use it to get feedback from your students. You can use it for in-class assignments or for discussions. This is one tool that I frequently use. It's a pre-class survey. Before my classes even start, I want to get an idea of who's out there sitting. A lot of our students have barriers that prevent them from coming to class or excelling in their class. Collecting a survey, this is a link to my student information sheet that they fill out before class. It gives me an idea of what else is going on in their life other than showing up to my class. As you can see, more than half of my students are working quite a bit. Very, very few students aren't working at all. How many hours each week do you work or volunteer? Most of them are working quite a bit. So this helps me to anticipate the kind of barriers that they might have in physically showing up to class. And it helps me reach out when they do need help. Like if one person doesn't show up once or twice, I can reach out to them. I also love at the end of class doing a quick exit ticket. If you want to scan my exit ticket, it gives you an example of what it looks like. It's based on the Center for the Advancement of Teaching's mid-semester feedback model. It asks for stickiest points. What didn't you understand? What stood out for you? And what do you need further help with? What do I do with this? So I can generate a really cool word cloud, which is always helpful, right? Like today was great class. Lesson was effective. They liked my lesson. But I can also use this with their questions. I go through, I see what questions they have, and rather than emailing everybody individually, I put together one announcement where I answer all of their questions. Sometimes they're goofy questions, like, Dr. Ritchie, are you an only child? I answer those too. And I give them information about what we covered in class. If anything's still unclear, I can make a video and explain that concept to them before we get together the next week. In-class assignments are also super helpful. iClickers are expensive. I know, I make my students use them every semester. I love them as a tool. They get expensive. Instead, I can have them do in-class assignments at no additional charge, and I can embed those forms directly on Canvas, or I can put them up as a QR code. And I can ask students questions. They can be multiple choice questions. They can be long answer questions. It creates really helpful feedback for me in the form of a word cloud or a pie chart. And these are ones that, as students are working on this activity, I can open this up and show them, hey, this is how our answers are coming in. All right, next up, my friend Maria Reid is going to be talking to you about virtual simulations that she uses in her class.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So in my classes, I teach mostly developmental psychology across a lot of different modalities. So I use both online, hybrid, and in-person. One of the tools that I find that is really helpful to get students to apply their learning, because you don't want them to just learn the facts about development in a classroom setting. You want them to be able to apply it so they can be better parents, right? Or they can be better people. So application is important. So I use virtual simulations. And the virtual simulations come with the textbook. And if I can get this to work, maybe that's it. It comes with the textbook, and there are actually two. The first one is called My Virtual Child, and the students get to create a child based on their own personality, and they go through 18 years of growth. They make different decisions that raise the child through all of these different things, along with a textbook. So they're getting to apply the learning that they're getting in the textbook. These are some examples of what it actually looks like. Now, in the virtual life, you actually live your life, all right? And they ask you to make certain decisions like, am I gonna go away to college? Am I gonna have a destination wedding? Am I gonna get married? Will my parents retire before I start to work? Those kinds of things you have to do. Now, the simulation itself is a really nice way to apply the learning, but it does not give you an opportunity for them to interact with each other, right? So what I do is I create discussion boards or discussions for them to interact with myself and each other. Now, for the child, the virtual child simulation, this discussion board is called Trials and Tribulations of Parenthood. So I do it differently for the hybrid and the in-person class versus the online class. For the online class, they have a traditional discussion board where they just answer threads and they talk with each other. They also have to do replies or responses to each other. Now, this is an example. These are some of the questions, and this is an example of how they respond to each other. Some of the interactions or the responses, email questions that I have gotten were, Professor, is this really about my virtual child? Because these people are talking like if they're raising a real child. At the end of the discussion, they do have one large post they have to do. How did this impact your thoughts about parenting? And one of the biggest responses I get is, I did not know that parenting was so difficult, and I am never having children. Which is really what we want, right? We want to decrease the population. Now, for my hybrid classes, I do it a little differently. I create discussion within the classroom. We call them play dates, because that's what we do as parents, right? We arrange play dates. These are usually based on the different developmental timelines, and I name the play dates after historic neighborhoods in Miami, such as Overtown and Calle Ocho. It gives them some perspective, right? These are some of the comments that I have gotten about the virtual simulations that I asked afterwards. They find it really interesting, and they also like it as a way for them to engage with each other and the material. So it's a really good tool for engagement. And next we have Professor Garcia talking about Yellowdig. Thank you. Sorry, Parker.
Hello. So I don't know about you, but I'm really sick of the traditional Canvas discussion board assignment. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar, the way that they work is typically the professor will pose a question, and the students will respond to that question on the forum, and they have to reply to at least 2 peers. And with these types of assignments, they tend to prompt basically 100 of the same answers from students, and then really lackluster peer replies, like the one that you see here, where they're just trying to meet the minimum word count and they're not really engaging with the material. So if your goal is for students to engage meaningfully about the content and to really think deeply about the questions that you're asking and to apply the content to their lives, then Yellowdig is a much more robust tool for doing that. So Yellowdig is a gamified social media-like platform where students can post about essentially anything in the course that they feel is relevant to their own lives. And the way that it works is there's a weekly point goal that students have to meet. And they can earn those points in a number of different ways. They can either make a post, they can reply to another student's post, but they also get points when other students reply to their post or when other students like their post. So essentially, students are being very quickly rewarded for making more engaging content. The more engaging their content is, the more it gets the other peers talking in the class, the more points they earn for the week. And so you start to notice really quickly that these one-dimensional responses that we tend to get from students really fall by the wayside. And students start really bringing in interesting and engaging content. And this gives students a lot of agency over the topics that they choose. When they post, and how they engage with peers is really getting them fired up about the material. And the thing about this is we don't pose a question every week that students reply to. It's not like when you ask them a specific question, you have a specific answer in mind. And I think that often that's the biggest barrier to professors adopting this technology because they get scared that there aren't guardrails for students and they fear that students are going to go off the rails and just talk about whatever they want. And so it is the case that there are guardrails built into this technology that can help students provide structure for their responses. So these are just some examples of some of the interesting ways that we can use this technology and some of the things that are built into it that allow for professors to provide those guardrails. So one thing that you can do is provide tags. And each post has to have a tag. And they're provided by the professor. So if you, for example, want students to talk about multidimensional systems theory, you can put that as a tag, and they can choose that as the tag on their post. Other students can then filter their feed by those posts and see other similar tags that they might be interested in. There's also a lot of really fun ways for students to post. They can record a video of themselves. They can make their own emoji. They can draw a picture. They can make a poll, which is one of the more popular forms of engaging with each other, where they're asking, how do you feel about this particular topic? And it really gets students thinking and engaging. And the more people who respond to their poll and the more people who comment on their post, the more points they can get for the week. And this is really where we see students' creativity coming out, and they really get to engage with the material in the way that really suits them best. And so this really gets at that student-to-student engagement and that human piece that the keynote speaker spoke about in the beginning, where we're really bringing back that person-to-person engagement, even in a fully online class, where they're getting to know each other in a way that they wouldn't with a traditional sort of unidimensional discussion board posts. And the best thing about Yellowdig is, oh no, I gotta go back. The best thing about Yellowdig is that you don't have to grade the posts. The grades are automatically passed back into Canvas. And so this frees up the time that you would have spent reading 100 of the same posts and replies to getting to actually engage with your students. You can model your expectations for what types of posts you hope to see by making your own posts. You can share fun stories and experiences. I also teach developmental psychology like Dr. Reid, so I like to post pictures of my kids and say, here's how this is an example of this particular topic. You can also give accolades, so you can create your own accolades within the technology where you can give additional points to people for things that you want to see, right? This is a great question, they get an additional 50 points, or this is a really interesting or really brave post, and they get another additional little bit of points. And so this really helps students to use the technology in a way that's engaging and interesting, and you can also shape their responses to be more within the realm of the types of things you're hoping to see by giving additional points for things that you really like. And so, of course, as good data scientists, we've collected some data on the way that we use Yellowdig, and so Dr. Garcia is going to share a little bit about how we've seen good outcomes with Yellowdig in our courses.
Hello, everyone. So first off, I wanted to start off with an actual example of a Yellowdig post from my course. So this is from my Intro to Psych course, which is fully online. And you can see this student, right? We were talking about different strategies for learning that week. So she went ahead, she talks about this is the best strategy for me, lists different strategies, and then asks her peers, which strategies work for you, right? So in a traditional post, what you would typically get is a reply from a classmate that says something like, hello, Maria. Yes, I agree. I also learned this way, right? But you can see how this shapes behavior a little bit differently. So, this student got about 24 votes cast on their Yellowdig survey. And then you can see the reflections here where people are saying things like, yes, I like that strategy, but this is another one that actually works best for me. And in this particular case, there were about over 20 replies to this one post in my course, which is very different from, just 1 or 2 replies per post, kind of agreeing with what the person was saying, and that's really it. So I wanted to dig a little deeper into the data and see what kind of impact Yellowdig was actually having in my course. And here's some of the things that I found. So first of all, traditional discussion boards, right? I was getting about 30 replies, so 30 posts over a 10-week period in my course. Once I switched over to Yellowdig in about 10 weeks, the average posts were about 50. So you can see that students were actually going beyond that, main post and then an additional reply to a classmate. They were working much harder on Yellowdig despite having the freedom to sort of post about whatever they wanted. Another thing that I wanted to share was at FIU, we have a gateway survey which asks students, how much do you agree with the following statement? I felt isolated in this course. Now think about it. This is an online course. You never meet, you never physically see anyone. And you can see this was before implementing Yellowdig in 2020. You can see how my feelings of isolation dropped just within a year. And some of the comments that I was getting from students were things like, this is really helping me get to know my classmates. This is really helping me to get to know you. So not only do the students post, but I also post on Yellowdig every week. So for example, when spring break comes, I tell them this is a free week. Post about what you're doing this week for spring break. I also post about what I'm doing on spring break. We share videos, we share pictures, so it really does help to get to know each other. I also went a little bit further and I created my own survey, which I distributed in my course, and you can see the findings here. So about 69.4% of students agreed that Yellowdig helped them to get to know their classmates. 75% said that they preferred Yellowdig over a traditional discussion post, and 71.4% felt that Yellowdig contributed to their learning. So one big thing that we commonly hear is, well, if you're letting them post about anything, are they really learning? This is not just posting about anything. This is posting about how the things that you're learning in class apply to your life. So it's definitely, at least they feel like it's contributing to their overall learning. Some of the comments, right, when I asked things like, what do you like most about Yellowdig? Students shared that it really helped kind of with that depth in learning. So it helped to kind of cement some of these topics and create meaningful conversations, as well as also learning about the other people in their class. So about 25% of the replies, when I asked what they liked about it, said things like, I liked the meaningful conversations, I liked the interactions, I liked the fact that it was kind of like social media. So any of you that decide to explore the tool, it's a lot like Twitter or Facebook, right? Where you're just posting, you're sharing pictures, you're sharing videos, and people are giving you likes, they're giving you emojis, and you're earning points, right? So the better your post, the more popular, the more points you earn, and that factors into your grade. The big negative, and it was only about 10%, was the cost. So students do have to pay about, I think it's like $11 or $12 for Yellowdig, so that was one big thing that came up. So after using this for a couple of years now, some of the things that we've learned is that we really can curb behavior using Yellowdig, especially by using things like accolades. You also do have to model the behavior. So if you're the professor, you kind of have to show students what you're expecting them to do. So, today's Monday. This morning I got up, I posted my Yellowdig post, I shared a link, I shared a video about what we were talking about this week and how it applied to my own life. So you do have to model the behavior, but like Dr. Parker shared, it's a trade-off because you don't have to grade. So the students earn their points automatically. Like any other change, it takes time to adapt. The first time you use it, it's not going to be perfect, but you're able to make tweaks. And you can see that it definitely makes a change when it comes to engagement. Any questions about any of the tools we shared? So thanks, everyone.
You have a question over there.
Sure.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Camila Granados, Cifuentes, Biology. I use Yellowdig, I think, since summer 21 when it was beta, before it was implemented. I went back to not using Yellowdig, and then Michael said, I'm going to use Yellowdig again because of ChatGPT. So I always started using Yellowdig again. And I have a question for you. Something that I notice sometimes is that students figure out that they can gain points but not having these deep conversations that we want them to have, like the ones that you show there. And I see that in my different classes, the depth changes. So I want to hear from your experience, how have you adapted so that you can bring them back?
So one thing that I've noticed that I've had to tweak a lot is the word count. Right? So initially I started with a very short word count. I have had to up it at times a bit to get some of that more in-depth learning that I'm expecting. I think that the other key thing are the comments. So sometimes I will log on and I will say, can you share more about that? Or I saw that you mentioned this, this idea. How do you feel that it applies here? You do have the ability to take off points. I try to stay away from that because I do want to reinforce the behavior that I'm getting. But I've seen that the word count is critical. I also give out accolades, and I tell them there is going to be the best post, there's going to be the first one who posts, so I have very set accolades, and they earn substantial points for getting that accolade. So I think that that's also been critical in helping kind of curb that behavior. So I have an accolade, for example, like the best original video. If you post the best original video, you're getting about 100 points. So that's significant. They want to get that accolade.
Thank you.
Anything you'd add?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think accolades are a really good way to do that. I think if you're getting posts that really are really far afield of what you were hoping, I do sometimes just reach out to the student individually and say, hey, I really enjoyed your posts this week, but maybe we could expand on that a little, or maybe we could bring it back to some of the specific things in the class. I also think those tags help a little bit too, requiring them to make at least one tag, and making the tags very specific to the content that you want for that week really does help sort of rein them back in to get those more in-depth posts.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Wonderful presentation from our FIU faculty. Let's give them another round of applause. All right, it's that time, lunchtime. Grab some lunch in the ballrooms, mix and mingle with fellow attendees, but please be back in your seats to continue our next session at 1 p.m. Enjoy!